Imagine like packing up your whole life, moving across the world for your partner to take like their dream job.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get there.
Yeah.
And because of your visa status,
Right.
you can't work even though you have all of these amazing skills and qualifications.
Yeah.
It's a really tough situation that a lot of people on H-4 visas face. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
Absolutely.
The H-4 visa debate.
It's a fascinating one.
Yeah.
You have all these highly skilled people who are more than ready to contribute to the U.S. economy, but their ability to work kind of hinges on this like tiny legal detail.
Oh, really?
Yeah, whether the Department of Homeland Security even has the authority to give them work permits.
So before we get too far into it,
Yeah.
can you give us like a quick reminder of what the H-1B and H-4 visas are?
Of course. So the H-1B visa is specifically for those specialized professionals that companies really need,
Okay.
but they can't always find them in the U.S. workforce. So think like biostatisticians who are crunching all the data for new drug discoveries,
Yeah.
or software developers creating the next like big mobile app, things
Yeah.
like that. And then the H-4 visa is for their spouse and any dependents that they pull along with them.
So the H-1B holder can work, but their partner on an H-4 can't necessarily.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. For years, H-4 visa holders weren't allowed to work at all.
Wow.
Regardless of their own qualifications. Imagine you're like a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you can't practice your profession just because of your spouse's visa.
That's got to be so frustrating.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And it discourages a lot of talented people from even choosing to come to the U.S.
Yeah. Can see how that would happen.
And that's a big part of what these major tech companies like Google and Amazon,
Right.
they've been arguing about this for a while. They rely so heavily on global talent, and they see these H-4 restrictions as a huge obstacle.
I bet.
And there's research that backs that up. Yeah, studies have actually shown that a significant number of H-1B visa holders have considered leaving the U.S. because of this.
Wow.
It's a potential brain drain that the U.S. can't really afford.
So then in 2015,
Yeah,
the Obama administration made some changes, right?
they did. Under Obama, there was this new rule that allowed certain H-4 visa holders to apply for work permits.
Okay.
But there was a catch.
What was it?
It only applied to spouses of H-1B holders who were already in the process of getting a green card.
Got it.
So it opened doors for thousands of professionals.
Right.
But it definitely wasn't a perfect solution.
Yeah, I can imagine it probably caused a lot of relief, but then also a lot of questions for people who didn't qualify.
Definitely.
What happened after that?
Well, this policy shift wasn't exactly universally welcome. There were some groups that argued that it would take jobs away from American workers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that concern actually fueled the Trump administration's attempts to reverse the rule entirely.
So it sounds like this kind of became like a tug of war.
Yeah.
With huge implications.
Huge.
Not just for these families directly, but for the whole U.S. economy.
Exactly. And now this battle has reached the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court.
So they're basically deciding if the government even has the power to grant these work permits.
That's right.
Wow. What are the possible outcomes here?
Right.
And what could they mean for everyone?
Well, it's a big deal. Like, the stakes are so high for this. If the Supreme Court ends up siding against the Department of Homeland Security,
Right.
it could mean that, like, thousands of H-4 visa holders would suddenly lose their work authorization.
Oh, wow.
And it would just throw their lives and their careers into total turmoil.
And I imagine that could have like a ripping effect on the economy, too.
Absolutely.
If these talented people start leaving the U.S.
Right.
because they don't feel welcome or their families can't thrive here,
Yeah.
it seems like a loss for everyone.
It is. It really is. And we've already seen this happen in other countries that have more restrictive immigration policies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Canada, for example, has become like a really popular destination
Okay.
for skilled professionals who feel like they're kind of hitting a wall with the U.S. system.
Right.
Canada is offering a much more welcoming environment.
Yeah.
And their tech sector is absolutely booming as a result.
It's almost like we're shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. We have all these brilliant minds who are ready to contribute,
Yeah.
but we're making it so hard for them to stay.
Yeah. It's a really complex issue, for sure. And there are definitely valid concerns on both sides.
Right.
But I think it's important to step back and look at the bigger picture here.
Okay.
What kind of immigration system do we want as a country?
Yeah.
Do we want one that embraces global talent and kind of fuels innovation?
Right.
Or do we want one that shuts people out
Mm-hmm.
and potentially hinders our own progress as a result?
You know, while I was reading about all this,
Yeah.
I came across an article about the green card backlog.
Oh, yeah.
And it mentioned that some H-1B visa holders have been waiting like a decade
Wow.
or more to get their applications processed.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about why that process is so slow?
Sure. So it really comes down to a bunch of factors.
Yeah.
You have limited visa quotas,
Mm-hmm.
you have complex bureaucratic procedures,
Right.
and even political roadblocks at times.
Oh, wow.
There are just way more people applying for green cards than there are visas available each year.
Yeah.
And then the process itself,
Mm-hmm.
it involves a ton of paperwork,
Yeah.
extensive background checks,
Right.
and often just years and years of waiting.
That just sounds so stressful for families.
No, it is.
You're stuck in limbo.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really plan for the future
Yeah.
or put down roots.
It's tough. And that uncertainty is a big part of why this H-4 work authorization is so important.
Right.
If spouses can work while they're waiting for their green card, they can at least contribute to their family's financial stability.
Yeah.
Build their own careers.
Right.
And feel a little bit more integrated into American society.
So beyond this legal battle over the work permits,
Yeah.
are there other solutions that are being explored to address these larger immigration challenges?
There are a few ideas being tossed around.
Okay.
Some lawmakers have proposed increasing the annual cap on H-1B visas,
Okay.
which would let more skilled workers come to the U.S. in the first place.
Yeah.
Others are pushing for streamlining the green card process itself,
Right.
making it faster and more efficient so that families don't have to wait in limbo for so long.
It seems like there's a lot of potential for reform here,
Definitely.
but it probably requires like a lot of compromise
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to see the issue from different sides.
Exactly. There's no easy fix. But I think the first step is just acknowledging how complex it is
Right.
and understanding how these policies impact real people's lives.
Yeah. You know, while I was researching for this deep dive, I came across this story about an H-4 visa holder
Okay.
who was a trained surgeon in her home country,
Wow.
but she couldn't practice medicine in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So she ended up volunteering at a local clinic,
Okay.
using her skills to help underserved communities.
That's amazing.
And it's a real testament to the resilience and the determination of these individuals, even when they're facing these huge obstacles.
It's a powerful story. And it highlights how much potential is being kind of wasted or untapped.
Right.
Imagine the contributions these people could make
Yeah.
if they were given the opportunity to fully participate in the workforce.
It really makes you think about the cost of these restrictive policies, not just in terms of the economics,
Right.
but in terms of like human potential.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to that fundamental question.
Yeah.
What kind of society are we trying to build here?
Right.
One that embraces diversity and welcomes contributions from everyone,
Mm-hmm.
or one that limits opportunities based on things like visa status?
That's a really powerful thought to consider.
It is.
It's so much bigger than just like legal arguments
Yeah.
or policy debates.
Mhm.
It's about the kind of future we're creating,
All right.
not just for these families, but for the whole country. We've covered so much ground today,
Yeah, we have.
and it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
It is a really complex issue.
It is incredibly complex,
I mean,
but I think we've given our listeners a good overview of what's at stake here,
yeah.
both for the people who are directly impacted
Mm.
and for the U.S. in general.
Yeah, I think so. We've explored like the legal details and the economic arguments,
Right.
but I think most importantly, the human stories.
Yeah, for sure. And it really comes down to values, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
What do we as a society want to prioritize?
Yeah. Do we value diversity and inclusivity and the contributions of all members of our community?
Right.
Or do we kind of let fear and protectionism dictate our policies
Yeah.
and potentially miss out on these incredible talents and perspectives that immigrants can bring?
You know, we can't predict what the Supreme Court will decide,
Right.
but this conversation has really highlighted for me
Yeah.
the need for a more thoughtful and compassionate approach to immigration,
I agree.
one that recognizes all the complexities
Mhm.
and tries to find solutions that actually benefit everyone.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important for listeners to remember that they have a voice in this debate.
Yeah.
You know, staying informed, engaging in conversations like this one,
Right.
and advocating for policies that align with their values.
Yeah.
Those things can make a real difference.
It's not just about the legal outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's about shaping the future.
Right.
And that's something we can all contribute to.
Sometimes these issues can feel so huge and overwhelming.
Yeah.
But individual actions do matter.
Absolutely.
It starts with awareness, then it leads to conversations like this.
Right.
And hopefully to positive change.
I love that. Well said. I hope our listeners feel empowered to learn more,
Yeah, me too.
to share their perspectives, and to engage in this critical conversation about the future of immigration in the U.S.
Absolutely. That's what these deep dives are all about.
Yeah.
Sparking that curiosity, providing context, encouraging our listeners to really think critically about the world around them.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this deep dive into the H-4 visa debate.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep those conversations going.